heard at least the general, overview in terms of the reactions to the SONA. It appears they say the president has already left and there was nothing. I will be reading some of the messages that have also come in as a result. Some of them say that they know the state of the nation already, and that's not what the president put out. That's not the picture that was painted. Really, tell us.
Well, I will prefer that whenever they say such things, they should mention specifically what the president said that was not true. Because you have to discuss everything within the context of what he said. If he indicated anything and you think that it's not true, then
so key, why was there no corruption? Why was there no mention of corruption?
I'm going to talk about that. You see, I'm going to address it. Principally, MFA, corruption is not fought with rhetoric or statements alone. It is fought with actions and the legal regime. That is what corruption is, how corruption is fought. If you look at, I have stated this time and again, and I want to reiterate it, that it was during His Excellency's first term in office, from 2017 to 2020, that we enacted most of the anti-corruption laws that will actually strengthen our democratic dispensation. And so the implementation of these laws will take the fight against corruption to the heights that we actually desire and clamor. I refer you to the Right to Information Act. Prior to that, you know what was happening in our system. Many public institutions could engage in certain acts that were unconscionable and corrupt and etc. And then you could go asking for information. For a year or more, you will not be given anything and you were stranded. You didn't know what to do. Today, we have the Right to Information Act in place. And then, even recently as last week, the Information Commission had to fine a state institution, I don't remember precisely, a state institution for refusing to give information and then ordered them to give the information to the entity that was looking for it. Yeah. That's a very big step. The passage of the right to information is a very big step that cannot be glossed over when you are looking at the fight against corruption. Again, MFA, let me refer you to this. And I heard my sister comment about the fact that His Excellency didn't talk about corruption. But let me refer you to this. I said it elsewhere and I want to reiterate it here, that never in the history of our country have we experienced members of the ruling government being prosecuted in courts than it is being experienced now. Never, ever. And I want to challenge anybody.
As in, you're talking about the numbers, or it's never happened?
The numbers of people who are prosecuted by who are members of the sitting government. And you can mention them in the Office of Special Prosecutor. They are without number. And probably, I'm saying probably, if we hadn't brought the Office of Special Prosecutor's Act into existence, most of those cases may not.
You've heard his lamentations, haven't you?
So if you look at
him, you've heard him lament on how difficult it is to execute or do his work under circumstances.
It has never been rosy. And elsewhere in the world, it has never been rosy. In Ghana, it will not. To fight corruption, you can't fight it on a silver platter. You recall that the venerable Amidu had to throw in the towel along the line and etc. And in the same way, he is also lamenting and etc. But the point is that I'm saying principally that today, as we speak, you find that the former PPA boss is being prosecuted. Again, you find that a former municipal chief executive nominee in Ashanti region is being prosecuted.
But if you've done so well in that sector, how is it that it did not find space in the President's State of the Nation address, which is the penultimate one?
You see, the point is that if you listen to all the things I'm talking about, I'm saying that if it was not found there in clear expression, that may have been an oversight on the part of the speech writers. But so much is being done about it. I'm saying that the fight against corruption cannot be won overnight. If I can continue itemizing them and listing them in their numbers, the number of cases that are currently being prosecuted, and those people are members of the ruling government, which in history we had not experienced much, except one or two that we have had. But because of the very reason for the enactment of the Office of Special Prosecutor, which was that the will by the Attorney General to prosecute one of his own, now we have this entity which is doing its work. It may face the difficulties, but eventually it is a marked improvement over the status quo.
What happened to the fight against illegal mining?
Again, the fight against illegal mining is one particular part that all of us, and I have been an advocate, I've been on this platform with many, advocating that we need to take the fight against illegal mining to the skies, because the way at which we were going, I even said that we're likely to commit mass suicide, because the activities we're engaged in and compromising with these illegal miners, polluting all our waters, we're going to come a day that we're not going to have even water to drink. And that we are getting very close to committing mass suicide. I've said this time and again, the president sent out...
Put his presidency on the line. Yet
and we've repeated this, has now become a boring one to the ear, that the majority, 90% of the areas where we have Galamsey ongoing, the president lost all those seats in 2020. And it was because of the fight against Galamsey. Quite clearly, no other reason. Because if you look at most of Prestia, Uni Valley, you have a lot of the areas, NPP, New Patriotic Party, lost it because the fight against Galamsey was taken to another level by the president. Again, as we speak, it is still ongoing. The minister is still engaged in that with the military.
The fight is still on?
It is on. Perhaps we are not seeing the burning of excavators, which was the situation in the past. And that is because maybe there's a shift in the focus and etc. But again, the time that is left for us to even discuss the issues in the State of the Nation's address, to be very honest,
the time you have, you can still talk about it.
Compared to myself and my brother, because if I'm going to look at the various heads and do the discussion as I'm supposed to do, I will need not less than 30 minutes or so to be able to make any impact at all. Because if you look at the various heads, you just spoke to my younger brother, Fintu, but he also, and then my in-law. But my son-in-law. But he failed to state something, that under this government, a lot of sports infrastructure have been constructed than any other government in history. He failed to acknowledge that. And I thought he should have done so before making his conclusions and then other analysis that he did. Because if you look at currently, the Legon Sports Stadium is ready. And then the Boteman state-of-the-art facility is ready. And in all the 10 traditional regions, we have stadia ongoing, at least some of them youth centers constructed and completed. Others are at various stages of completion, and etc.
And some of them also existing, abandoned.
Some Astro steps that have actually been constructed and completed. Some of them, he also failed to acknowledge that some of them are standard. Some are not, others are. He also failed to acknowledge that. So, I mean, it is public knowledge, and I want to challenge anybody to tell me any government since independence that has constructed more sports infrastructure than the current government. There's none. Again, if you look at education, you know, I mean, we've spoken about the free senior high in the midst of the difficulties. It has not been abandoned. It's actually been expanded, and many more children are enjoying and benefiting. Again, in the midst of all the economic difficulties, payment of allowances to nurses and teacher trainees have not been withdrawn. It is still ongoing. Health insurance is ongoing, and payments are even more effective.
And people are paying out of pocket.
Yes, I agree, but
I've told you about our series.
Also heard service providers, I mean, holding press conferences and saying they are not being paid as it used to be. It is even now improved. The
because most of them are being victimized when they go out to speak about it.
Even in the midst of the economic difficulties and all that. So the education sector, they may be challenging. Look at the STEM schools, about 10 of them, very beautiful schools. That could, if you want to construct E-blocks, they could construct hundreds of them, and etc. So there is, look, it is an act of pretense for somebody to sit down and say that everything is rosy. It will be a huge act of self-deception to say that everything is rosy in this country. It is not. But we are moving gradually and going towards that land we are clamoring for ourselves. And you will realize that Professor Bokin stated, even in his submission, about the fact that the president compared the previous year or two to the current year and then said that there's an improvement. It is true. If inflation was at 54 and we brought it down to 23, that is certainly commendable. And even targets that we set for ourselves.
As a comparison of your own record to your own record.
No, yeah, of course. But it is an improvement. If you can bring it down from 54, and you know that the circumstances that spiraled the whole thing to that level, that is the 54. The circumstances where most of them were, I mean, factors that were out of our control and jurisdiction. And we've been able to manage to bring it down. Even if you look at the targets that we have for GDP growth and etc., we've had to revise and all that. We've gone beyond some of the targets that we are supposed to have set for ourselves and etc. Those are commendable. Again, I say this and I add the caveat that everything is not rosy. The difficulties are there. I mean, people's pockets are not as they would have expected and etc. But we have made tremendous progress. And the president stated it in the State of the Nation's address.
Let me